if I went around blaming women for not actually being men, so that way I could be attracted to them and then have sexual interest in them and maybe give myself a low five or fuck them or whatever it is. It is not the fault of women that they don't have dicks and that they have tits and vaginas. The fact I'm not interested in that is not their fault. That's my own problem. And it is a discredit to me, it would be a discredit to me, were I to blame them for not being all in the universe that I find sexually appealing. Okay, that guy who does movie sins can't draw that distinction. I want to like it because he does say some good things. He points out gaping, maybe I shouldn't use gaping right after that skit, or that segment. He points out colossal plot problems. Like, why would this character do that? And this is actually dealing with the intrinsic problems of a story. If you think about something like the Aristotelian unities, and in particular I want to focus on, when you tell a story, there's a reason that Greek stories persist to this day. These people knew how to tell a story. Now granted, anyway, I'm not going to give the whole history there. I don't even know it, but focus. Okay, whatever it is that's intrinsic to telling the story, these are the things that are variations from the normal world. Those are the things that you have to play with. Now, when you establish a fictitious universe, which is what we do now, you'll have a fictional universe where things are, except for what needs to be changed to tell the story, or are the same. For instance, gravity works here the way it works there. People, when they're on the planet and they drop an apple, it falls down, not up. This consistency with the world in which we inhabit is ubiquitous in stories. When you start messing with that, you need to make sure that it is something that needs to be done for the sake of telling a story, and not just some artificial devices thrown in because it oh, hey, look, a good chance to throw in some graphics. Same thing with fight scenes or love scenes. Don't just sprinkle these things in there all randomly because, hey, people like to see these. If you can't actually tell a story where that's an essential element, where that part actually contributes to the story, then you are going out of your way to make a worse story than you could tell. It's not that hard to make these things organic parts of a movie. It really isn't hard to build into the fabric of a movie a relationship between people. It's trivially easy to pull off. The stories that are told are all about relationships, a subset of which will be sexual ones. But then you also have these are extrinsic properties, extrinsic problems with and how the story is presented. That is the camera work and how the actors actually go about performing the scene and how it's portrayed, depicted, and recorded. These are the problems with the audio. For instance, the extreme close-ups. That way you can, when someone does their eye, you want to make sure that you can hear that in the movie, even though you don't hear it in the real world. And not many people want to hear people smacking their lips and eyelids. I don't know if you can hear it when I do it. That was really me pulling my eyelid away. I don't know if it. Oh, I guess I'll find out. Or when they have these kissing scenes, and it's not a kiss like people actually ever have in the real world. That is so goddamn. If someone ever kissed me like that, I swear to God, I swear to non-God, I would literally step back and punch that motherfucker in the face. It makes me that annoyed that everything that is human sexuality is denigrated that way in all of the movies that are told. It's like watching porn. The funny thing about porn, one of the funny things about porn is they go out of their way to act. You know what? If you actually are just enjoying yourself and portraying a story, you don't have to pretend to be enjoying yourself. I know it's strange, but it's over the top. It's so corny. And every movie that makes it to the big screen and independent films exploit this, and they can't divorce themselves the doing of this actual problem in telling a story. It is visiting upon something that could be good, an indignity that it doesn't need to suffer. These are self-inflicted wounds that the movie industry and the independent movie industry can't stop themselves doing. They just can't break the habit. I don't know why. Same thing with all of the stupid plot devices of, oh, we want to titillate the audience by having nudity, but we're going to cleverly place objects so that way you can't really see it. Look, either have it or don't. This is don't if you're going to be avant-garde and have nudity in your film, actually have it in your film. I know it's hard to imagine, but in the real world, if you're watching someone naked, there's not actually a gallimaufry of objects that come to jump in front of the way between you and what it is you're looking at. And this brings me to another extrinsic problem with all 100% of movies do this. There isn't one that fails to commit this problem, to exploit this problem. The inability to understand or the unwillingness to respect the fact that a movie, what is presented to the audience, the camera is the lens through which they see that. So what appears on the screen is just as important as what doesn't appear on the scene. If I want to tell you a story about a can of a soft drink, soft drink of some type, this is going to be a really bad story, but just suppose, the way that you do that, actually I have one here, is not by saying, okay, here's the can, you see it, not a sponsor, by the way, this is not product placement, that I want to do something to this can, and you, the audience, are for some stupid reason interested in what I'm going. Well, now you're interested because I'm mentioning it, but say this is a piece of work, a work of art, that something's happening to this can. But what I'm going to do is make sure that the can is something that you actually can't see. It's the sleight of hand that's used in magic tricks to distract you, so that way they can pull the rabbit out of the hat. You don't need to do that in a movie. You can actually just show it. So what they do is to jazz up, to gin up some sense of excitement. Say if something dramatic is happening in the can, it's in an action scene, my little can's going to be in a fight scene. They take the camera and jiggle it all over the place, and they do this and that, because, and they have these strange zoom-ins, oh look at that, and this, and that, and That doesn't add excitement. All it does, to me the viewer, is go, these people don't know how to operate a camera. They don't know how the human eye works. This is one of the problems in porn, and this is true of all visual, I don't want to say all. There might be some visual depictions that don't commit this problem, that don't have this problem. The way that the human eye works when you take in something in the real world is you don't stare at and focus on just a point, even if it's something you're particularly interested in, barring some extreme exceptions. Exceptions in extreme cases. Like someone puts a gun to your eyes, to your head, you're going to be, for a while, very focused on the barrel of that gun. But anyway, putting those things off to the side, your eye naturally takes in this bit, and it takes in that bit, and it takes in the other bit, and your eyes, they go hither and thither as you take in the totality of what it is that's laying before you. Movies deprive you of that. Now, in part, it's not their fault, because you're trying to represent a three-dimensional world in a two-dimensional medium, so you're going to have a loss of information there, and you can only represent things so well. But that technical limitation aside, which is no one's fault, it's just the nature of the universe, they also go out of their way to make sure that they do this, they exploit and exacerbate this problem by zooming in and focusing on things and depriving you, the person who's being told the story, the person who is supposed to be trying to figure out what's going on and whatever the piece is, they deprive you of being able to see what's actually happening. And any time a movie does that to you, you should resent it. Because what they're asking you to do, if you want to draw a parallel to the real world, is to take in some ostensibly beautiful scene or important scene, but instead of actually looking at it with your eyes, you have to take straws. Close one eye, take a straw, and just look through that straw to appreciate the beauty of, say, a sunset. No, you appreciate the beauty of landscape and the numinous nature of a beautiful sunset by actually being able to take in the fucking sunset. Well, how does the light play over here? How does it play over there? What's it doing up yonder and up close? What's in the foreground? What's in the background? They insult you by taking that away from you, and it is not clever. They're not being avant-garde. They are being lazy and rude to you, the viewing audience. And I really don't like it when the media that I take in has such contempt for me, the person watching it. Now, some people might say, well, there's a line between those kinds of problems, or what I claim are problems, and just aesthetic appeal of a movie. You're right. There aren't the lines here are not they're not crystallized. They're not hard set. And that one thing is that no matter what it is you're presented, it will always clearly be the one thing or the other thing. I don't happen to like it when people try to, I don't know, read me a story by reading 3 words of it. Do you? That's the same thing. That's the same restriction of information that you're given when they stupidly zoom in on something so fucking close that all you can see is that very thing. And I'm not talking here about the transition. I mean, I understand that. You know, like when you zoom it in so it fades to black and you have, whatever. Those kinds of effects are lost on me, but I understand why those are there. That's not actually part of the story. That's just a cue to you, the viewer, that, okay, now we're moving on to a different part, and I'm closing this out for the moment. We'll return to this chapter later, or whatever it is. That's not actually intrinsic to telling the story. That's just a technical way of saying, cut, okay, end of Act 1, we're going on to Act 2, or whatever, or Scene 3, whatever it happens to be. Those things I understand, those are prompts. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of the rambling of what goes on inside my mind. It's when the people create a universe that they have, when they sit down and write this shit out, they have all the freedom in the world to make it however they want. And then they refuse to be constrained by the rules they themselves have imposed, like in Star Wars with the Force isn't magic, and then Star Wars Expanded Universe, the Force is magic. Odo is a changeling, now Odo is a solid. That's where I stopped watching Star Trek Deep Space Nine. Completely uninteresting storyline to me. A story that should not have been told. The whole thing that made Odo Odo is the fact that Odo wasn't just another person. He was, in part, a plot device, in the same way Data's a plot device, to be able to give commentary on the human condition. And, I mean, that's part of what made the character that he was. Part of it was the fact that he had these abilities that other people didn't have. Oh, better example. Take the book, not Darth Bane, Darth Maul, Lockdown. The guy who wrote this book, if I hopefully Homeland Security's not listening, if I heard that he got tarred, feathered, drawn, and quartered, I would actually have a beer in celebration. This guy is a horrible writer. Here's what he's done to a Star Wars story. When you think of the Star Wars, you think of 2 things: the Force and lightsabers. And he goes, you know, I want to tell a story. I want to set a story in the Star Wars universe, and what I want to do is to take out the lightsabers and preclude the use of the Force. Whatever it is you're telling, sir, it's not a Star Wars story. It's a story that happens just any old place, that happens to use some characters you saw and liked. So he writes this book, and one of the things is that Darth Maul can't use the Force, but for some reason he still is able to do all the same physical abilities, just as strong. He can beat up ginormous creatures. The reason that the characters inside the Star Wars universe have the physical attributes that they have is by tapping into and making use of that field that permeates the universe. It's not something that's intrinsic in them in the sense of their own physical ability. It's their sensitivity to the Force and the ability to exploit it, to manipulate it, to bring about the effects that you see. So this retard, who I guess writes horror stories, probably fucking those up, which is hard to do, I'd imagine. They're always horrible. Anyway, that's why they're called horror stories. Just, oh my god, this story it's a horror. This is one of those books that shouldn't be pushed gently aside. It should be thrown. Anyway. So he puts the guy in a prison where Darth Sidious has said the one thing that you can't do, Lord Maul, that you may not do, is use the Force. What? Fuck off. That's an insult to the audience of people who read and watch Star Wars. But there were some people who go, oh my god, this is an important work. It's such a wonderful take on what it would like to be a Jedi. I'm sorry, or a Sith Lord. It is not at all an interesting take on what it's like to be a thing by making something not that. It's like saying, you know, talking about, again, to use my stupid can analogy here because it was there, this empty can of Coke is, or whatever, Refresh, again, not a sponsor, and I picked up a Safeway. This empty can, is a wonderful telling of a story about a tree. No, it's not. You know what would be possibly an interesting story about being a tree? A story that actually involves trees. I know it's hard to imagine. It is in no sense at all